beautiful. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and we have access to so many lives, so many stories, so much information. It can sometimes feel overwhelming. But whatever it is that's drawing your attention right now, and maybe it'll be something different next week and the week after that, because massive cycles are being broken. Many people are awakening, and in order for humanity to awaken, they need to have access to truth. There's a major restructuring of systems, and your energy supports that restructuring. So you need to have access to the information. Whatever it is that draws your attention, that is at the core or the heart of your suffering right now, that thing that makes you feel the most helpless and that challenges your hope and your faith in humanity. It might trigger a lot of ideas and ignite your belly chakra to want to act and do something. And that's good. But if you can just take a moment to do this somewhere there in that unfolding, think about that situation that draws your attention. What is it that really bothers you about it? Maybe write it down and then ask yourself, this thing that bothers me, how does it make me feel? This next thing on the list that bothers me, how does it make me feel? And the next thing on the list that bothers me, how does it make me feel? And once you've got the feeling words down, that's why you can't let it go. That's why you're obsessing about it. That's why it's consuming all of your energy. That's why it is calling your attention so much. Because if you've written down hatred, if you've written down resentment, if you've written down hopelessness, if you've written down despair, if you've written down dread, what is on the opposite end of that spectrum? Hatred is not the absence of love. It is conflict. It is the conflict with an attachment to how that love or that relationship should have played out. It is the presence of so much emotion and so much care, but not from a place of appreciation, a place of judgment. So then, we want to remove the judgment, or we want to transmute the judgment, not remove it, because you can never really remove anything. You want to transmute it by recognizing that what you're really asking for and what your soul is really calling for is appreciation. Now, that might seem like a big task and too much to ask for. How can I appreciate anything about what is happening here? Maybe you can't. But maybe you can find other things around the subject that you can appreciate. Or other things that are of a similar nature, but a totally different subject that you can appreciate. If you've written despair, what would be the opposite of that would feel better in this world? Once you've established what it is that you are really reaching for, that your soul is really calling your attention to, then you can still have the conversations that matter, still take the action that matters, still advocate for what matters, and begin to do the energetic work to start to, instead of adding more momentum to the judgment or the hatred or the bitterness or the all of that you see in the situation that you wish was different. So you can stop adding momentum to that emotionally. You'll start to recognize when that is activated in your body, because you give your power away. We're actually adding energy to that which we don't want. which is good at a particular point in time, but you don't want to keep adding momentum to it. Not really if you want to see change in the world. And I get that for some of us, we feel like to expect change is foolish. But that's a dark place, to give up on humanity altogether. We've always been progressing, putting one foot ahead of the other in one way or another. And the little steps matter. And you're here to be part of that change, because things have to change energetically before they can shift in the physical. Before something can move physically, it has to change energetically. And we're all doing that. But sometimes unintentionally we find ourselves depressed, stuck, creating conflict in our personal lives and creating more of what we don't want to see in the world, making ourselves sick and making our lives harder than it needs to be because something is calling to us. We're passionate about it for a reason and we don't really know how to shift it. So that's how you shift it. You still do all the things that you do that matter. But if you can set some time aside every day to sit with that list of things that really bother you and recognize the energy that you are trying to create, that you want to see more of in the world, as opposed to the energy that you are recognizing and feeling consumed by and feeling powerless in the face of, then you can start to tip the scale on our planet energetically. Because when the scale tips energetically on our planet, you empower yourself first, okay, by transmuting that energy, by cultivating more acceptance, more appreciation in the areas where it matters, and still sort of pointing out that that's not good. I don't want to be a part of that. That's not the life that I want. And then spending some time every day focusing on the things that are worth appreciating. Because there is duality, as much as if there is an overwhelming amount of misery in the world, then there is an overwhelming amount of beauty and value in the world. But we can't see it because we're sometimes too afraid to take our eyes off of the things that are wrong, because we're afraid that it'll never change, and then it never changes. We can decide and position ourselves and educate ourselves and decide which world we want to contribute to and where we want to affect change. And we can still be that change in our own little way by shifting energetically. Because when you're in an empowered place and when you feel inspired and when you become part of the creative force and when you fulfill your purpose and you live your purpose and you live from a place of appreciation and love. And I'm not saying we must always just be happy all the time. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when you are so overwhelmed by dread and resentment and hopelessness, you become depressed, you are defeated, you don't have the energy to create the life that you deserve. And whilst you don't have the energy to create the life that you deserve, we add to we can't help those who deserve better lives that we're looking at from the outside either. Our creative force and us being able to bring more goodness and magic into this world, which is what we really want to do, is what begins to tip the scales, right? Because there are so many good people that would make this world a better place if only they were happier in their jobs and they weren't so sick and they weren't so depressed and they could work in their communities and they could share their art and they could share their passions and their gifts and they had more financial ease and abundance. And you can't get there whilst you're also drowning in and adding to the momentum of the misery in the world. You cannot help anyone from that place. But we can help to shift things energetically and then shift things in our own world and impact the world at large. If we can move from that hopeless, helpless place, and we've got to feel it to be able to move from it. I'm just saying, let's not get stuck. We don't have to get stuck there. And this process is a simple one. It's simple. And if we can set a